Don't go back out there." Claire Bennett had to shout just to be heard over the wind. Snow slammed against the side of her SUV so hard it sounded like handfuls of gravel. Ethan Walker stood 10 feet away, one hand gripping the open door of his old pickup, the other holding a flashlight that was already fading. His coat was covered in snow. His beard had ice along the edges. He looked exhausted. Claire pointed toward the back of his truck. "You've already got 6 dogs in there." Ethan glanced at the truck bed, where blankets had been piled around 6 shaking animals. Then he looked back toward the white wall of snow beyond the road. "There's one more." Claire stared at him. "You don't know that." Ethan opened his hand. A red dog collar rested in his palm. 7 collars, he said. 6 dogs. Claire felt her stomach drop. The temperature was already below 20 degrees, and the weather alert on her phone had warned people to stay off the mountain roads. Even emergency crews were pulling back until visibility improved. Ethan knew that. He had a 9-year-old daughter waiting for him at home. He had every reason to get in the truck and leave. Instead, he tightened his gloves. Claire stepped closer. "Ethan, you can barely see 20 feet in front of you." "I know." "Then stop." He looked at her for a second. No big speech. No angry answer. "If it was your dog, would you want me to stop?" Claire had nothing to say. Ethan turned toward the storm. That was when she grabbed his sleeve. "You could get lost." He looked down at her hand, then back at the snow. "Then I'll stay close to the fence line." "You planned this." "I planned to find them." Claire let go. 30 minutes earlier, she had been sitting inside her heated SUV secretly following this man because she thought he was stealing from her company. Missing blankets. Bags of food taken from the resort kitchen. Extra fuel charged to a company card. Strange hours no manager could explain. Daniel Cross, her chief operating officer, had called Ethan unreliable. Maybe dishonest. Claire had believed there was a good chance he was right. Then she watched Ethan pull the first dog from a snowbank. Then a second from beneath an abandoned trailer. Then 2 more huddled beside an old shed. He never checked to see if anyone was watching. He never took a picture. He never asked for help until Claire finally stepped out of her SUV and started carrying blankets herself. And before we go any further, if you believe the things people do when nobody is watching say the most about who they really are, take a second to subscribe, because this story is only getting started. Ethan switched on the flashlight again. The beam disappeared into the blowing snow after a few yards. Claire looked at the red collar in his hand. "What's its name?" she asked. Ethan turned the tag over. One word was scratched into the metal. "Buddy." Somewhere beyond them, faint and almost lost beneath the wind, came a single bark. Ethan froze. Claire heard it too. He looked at her. "That's him." Then he stepped off the road and walked straight into the blizzard. 3 days earlier, Ethan Walker was not the kind of man anyone at Bennett Ridge Resort talked about unless something needed fixing. He showed up before sunrise, parked his old Ford near the maintenance shed, and usually had a wrench in his hand before most of the staff had finished their first cup of coffee. He was 39, quiet, dependable, and almost impossible to read. If a heater stopped working, Ethan fixed it. If an older employee needed help carrying supplies, Ethan was there. If someone thanked him, he usually just nodded and went back to work. At home, things were just as simple. He lived with his 9-year-old daughter, Lucy, in a small rented house about 15 miles from the resort. Their mornings were rushed but warm. Toast on paper plates. Coffee for Ethan. Chocolate milk for Lucy. A backpack that was always missing one glove. "Dad, you forgot your lunch again," Lucy said one morning, holding up a brown paper bag. Ethan took it and smiled. "That is why I keep you around." Lucy rolled her eyes. You keep me around because I am adorable. That too. By 8 o'clock, Ethan was back at the resort, clearing snow from a walkway near the main lodge. He did not notice the black SUV pull into the employee lot. Claire Bennett stepped out wearing a dark wool coat and carrying a leather folder. Most of the staff knew who she was before she even reached the doors. She owned Bennett Hospitality Group, which meant she owned the resort, the hotel, the restaurants, and almost every building Ethan worked inside. Claire had come because the numbers did not make sense. Costs were up. Supply records were messy. Fuel charges were higher than expected. Daniel Cross, the chief operating officer, met her in a conference room and placed a red file on the table. "This is the employee I told you about," he said. Claire opened it. Ethan Walker. Maintenance technician. Single parent. No serious complaints. Good performance reviews. Then she saw the notes. Unexplained mileage. Extra fuel. Missing blankets from storage. Food removed from the kitchen after hours. Claire looked up. Has anyone asked him about this? Daniel leaned back. He always has an answer. That was not my question. Daniel gave a small shrug. People here like him. They make excuses. Claire looked through the file again. She did not like assumptions. She liked facts. Then we get facts. Later that afternoon, she saw Ethan near the service entrance loading 2 folded blankets into his truck. He added a bag of unopened dog food, then looked around the parking lot. Claire watched from inside the lobby. Daniel appeared beside her. "See," he said quietly. Ethan closed the truck bed. Claire kept watching. "I see a man loading supplies." Daniel frowned. "What else do you need?" Claire picked up the red file. "I need to know where he is taking them." Outside, Ethan climbed into his truck and drove away like it was any other day. Claire stood by the window for a long moment. She did not know it yet, but the answer waiting for her was going to make that red file feel very different in her hands. The next morning, Claire started watching Ethan more closely. Not in a dramatic way. She did not hide behind corners or follow him from room to room. She simply paid attention. Ethan arrived at 6:20 in the morning, 10 minutes before his shift. He checked the boilers, cleared ice from the employee entrance, and helped a dishwasher carry 2 boxes into the kitchen. Nothing strange. Nothing worth putting in a red file. Around noon, Claire saw him speak with the kitchen manager. The manager handed him a paper sack and pointed toward the back door. Ethan thanked her and carried it outside. Claire waited a few seconds, then walked into the kitchen. "What was in the bag?" she asked. The manager looked surprised. "Food. For him." "Not exactly." Claire waited. The woman wiped her hands on a towel. "It is stuff we cannot serve tomorrow. Plain chicken. Rice. A few things like that." Ethan asks before he takes anything. Claire frowned. Every time. Every time. That was not what Daniel had told her. Later, Ethan stopped by housekeeping and spoke with a woman named Teresa. She gave him 3 old blankets with small stains near the corners. Those were being thrown out, Teresa explained when Claire asked. Ethan said he could use them. For what? Teresa smiled. You would have to ask Ethan. Claire considered doing exactly that, but something stopped her. She wanted to know what he did when he thought nobody cared. At 4:30, school let out in town. A small yellow bus stopped near the employee parking lot, and Lucy Walker jumped down wearing a purple coat and carrying a backpack that looked almost as big as she was. She ran straight toward Ethan. Dad. Ethan turned just in time to catch her. For the first time all day, Claire saw his whole face change. The tired look disappeared. How was school? He asked. Fine. That means bad. It means fine. Ethan smiled. Math test. Lucy made a face. Do not ask. They walked toward his truck together. Claire was passing through the lobby when she heard Lucy say something that made her stop. Did you feed them? Ethan lowered his voice. Everyone I could find. Lucy looked worried. Even the little brown one. Yeah. And Buddy. Ethan paused. I did not see Buddy today. Lucy looked down. Maybe he is hiding again. Maybe. Ethan opened the passenger door for her. I will check tomorrow. Claire stood behind the glass doors, watching them leave. Them. That word stayed with her. Daniel joined her a minute later. He is doing it again, he said. Doing what? Taking things. Claire looked at him. The kitchen manager says he asks permission. Daniel crossed his arms. That does not explain the fuel. No. Claire watched Ethan's old truck turn onto the highway. It does not. That evening, the weather service issued a winter storm warning for the mountain area. Heavy snow was expected by the next afternoon. Travel could become dangerous. The resort began preparing early. Claire should have been thinking about staffing, guests, and emergency plans. Instead, she kept thinking about Lucy's question. Did you feed them? The next day, just before the snow started falling, Claire saw Ethan place dog food, water, and several old blankets in the back of his truck. This time, she did not ask Daniel what he thought. She reached for her car keys. By the time Ethan left the resort, the first real bands of snow were already crossing the highway. Claire waited almost a minute before pulling out behind him. She told herself she was only checking the fuel issue. Nothing more. Ethan drove north instead of toward town. That was the first thing that felt wrong. His house was south, and Lucy should have been waiting for him there. Claire stayed several car lengths back. The road narrowed as they climbed into the mountains. Pine trees crowded both sides. Snow began sticking to the pavement. Ethan kept going. Claire looked at the clock on her dashboard. 4:48. The storm warning had said conditions would get worse after 5. She almost turned around. Then Ethan took an old service road she had never noticed before. Claire followed. The pavement disappeared beneath packed snow and gravel. There were no houses. No stores. No reason she could see for anyone to be out there. She gripped the steering wheel. What are you doing, Ethan? She said quietly. Ahead, his brake lights came on. Claire slowed too. For a few seconds, nothing happened. Then Ethan stepped out of his truck. He walked toward the shoulder and crouched beside something near a snowbank. Claire leaned forward. At first, she thought it was a dark piece of trash. Then it moved. A dog. Small. Brown. Covered in snow. Ethan took off one glove and held out his hand. He did not rush. He did not grab. He just waited. Come on, buddy, he said softly. The dog stayed low. Ethan reached into his coat and pulled out a piece of food. Another few seconds passed. Then the dog moved closer. Ethan wrapped it in one of the old resort blankets and carried it to his truck. Claire sat frozen behind the wheel. That explained the blankets. Maybe the food too. She should have felt relieved. Instead, she watched Ethan close the passenger door and look toward the trees. He heard something. Claire could tell by the way he stopped. Ethan grabbed a flashlight from behind his seat. Then he walked away from the road. Claire finally got out. The wind hit her immediately. Ethan. He turned fast. His face showed surprise. Claire. What are you doing out here? He looked past her toward the black SUV. I could ask you the same thing. Claire ignored that. There is a storm coming. I know. Then why are you walking into the woods? Ethan raised the flashlight. Because I heard another one. Claire stared at him. Another dog. He nodded. There are several out here. How do you know? Ethan hesitated. I have been feeding them for weeks. Suddenly, the missing food, the old blankets, and the extra mileage all lined up in Claire's head. But one question remained. Why did you not tell anyone? Ethan looked toward the trees. I did. Who? Animal control. A rescue group. Anybody I thought could help. They are overloaded. The wind pushed harder. Snow swirled around his boots. Claire looked at the dog inside the truck, wrapped in a blanket that had once been listed as missing company property. And you kept coming back. Ethan gave a small shrug. They still needed food. Then a faint bark came from somewhere beyond the trees. Ethan turned toward it. Claire heard it too. He tightened his coat and stepped off the road. Ethan. He stopped. How many are out there? He looked back at her. I do not know yet. Then he walked into the snow, and for reasons Claire could not fully explain, she followed him. Claire was not dressed for this. Her boots were made for hotel lobbies, not deep snow, and within 5 minutes she could feel cold working through them. Ethan moved slowly ahead of her, keeping the flashlight low. Stay in my tracks, he said. It is easier that way. Claire almost told him she did not need help. Then her foot sank nearly to her ankle. She followed his tracks. The barking came again, weak but closer now. Ethan stopped near a fallen pine. He crouched and aimed the light beneath the branches. 2 eyes reflected back. There you are, he said. A medium-sized black dog was pressed against the trunk, trying to stay out of the wind. Ethan opened the food bag and placed a few pieces on the snow. Claire watched him wait. No sudden moves. No loud voice. Just patience. The dog finally came close enough for Ethan to wrap a blanket around it. Can you carry the flashlight? He asked. Claire took it. Together they made their way back to the road. By the time they reached the truck, the snow was coming down harder. Ethan settled the second dog beside the first and checked both blankets. Claire looked at him. That makes 2. Ethan shook his head. There are more. How many? Last time I saw 6 around here. Maybe 7. Claire stared at him. You came out here alone knowing that. Ethan closed the truck door. I came because the storm moved in faster than expected. That is not an answer. He looked at her. It is the only one I have. Then another bark came from farther up the service road. Ethan started walking. Claire followed again. They found the third dog near an empty storage shed, then a fourth hiding beneath an old wooden porch. The fifth was smaller and too scared to come close at first. Ethan sat in the snow for several minutes, talking to it like they had all the time in the world. You are okay, he said. Nobody is going to rush you. Claire stood nearby, holding the blanket open. The dog finally moved toward him. Claire helped wrap it up. You are good at this, she said. Ethan gave a tired smile. I have had practice. With dogs. With scared things. Claire thought about Lucy but did not ask. They carried the dog back. 6 now filled the truck between the cab and the covered bed, all wrapped in old blankets, with bowls of water Ethan had packed before leaving the resort. Claire looked at the dark road behind them. That is 6. Ethan opened a small plastic box near the tailgate. Inside were collars he had collected during previous visits, each tagged with a name. He counted them quietly. Then he stopped. Claire saw the change in his face. What? Ethan pulled out a red collar. The metal tag was scratched but readable. Buddy. Claire looked at the dogs in the truck. He is not here. Ethan shook his head. No. The wind pushed snow across the road in thick waves. Claire checked her phone. No signal. Ethan, we need to leave. He kept staring at the collar. Buddy is older. He does not move fast. That makes this worse. Ethan put the collar in his pocket and reached for the flashlight. Claire stepped in front of him. You have already done more than anyone could ask. Ethan looked toward the trees. Buddy did not ask for any of this. Claire lowered her voice. You have a daughter waiting at home. That hit him. She could see it. Ethan closed his eyes for a second. Then he looked back at the 6 dogs. Lucy would ask me the same question. What question? Ethan turned toward the storm. Did you leave one behind? He picked up the flashlight. Claire knew then that she was not going to talk him out of it. So she grabbed another blanket from the truck. Fine, she said. But you are not going alone. Ethan looked surprised. Claire pulled her coat tighter. Do not make me repeat myself. For the first time since they had left the road, Ethan almost laughed. Then the two of them stepped back into the snow, looking for Buddy. The wind had picked up enough that Claire could barely hear Ethan unless he was standing a few feet away. Snow swept across the road and erased their footprints almost as soon as they made them. Ethan kept the flashlight low, searching near the fence line while Claire stayed close behind him with the blanket tucked under one arm. Buddy, Ethan called. Come on, boy. Nothing. They walked another 50 yards. Claire checked behind them. The truck lights were already hard to see. We should not go much farther, she said. Ethan nodded. Agreed. Then he stopped. Near the fence, half buried in fresh snow, was a shallow set of paw prints. Here, he said. Claire crouched beside him. The tracks moved away from the road toward an old maintenance building. Ethan followed them. The building was small, maybe 20 feet wide, with peeling paint and one broken window covered by plywood. You know this place? Claire asked. Old storage shed. Has not been used in years. They reached the door. It was stuck. Ethan leaned against it until the snow packed around the bottom gave way. Inside, the air was still cold, but at least the wind was gone. Claire aimed the flashlight across the floor. Empty shelves. A rusted bucket. Pieces of cardboard. Then she heard a soft whine from the far corner. Buddy. Ethan moved slowly. An older golden retriever was curled behind a stack of wooden pallets. His coat was wet, and he looked tired, but when Ethan said his name again, his tail moved once against the floor. There you are, Ethan said quietly. Claire felt her shoulders drop. She had not realized how tense she had been. Ethan knelt a few feet away and held out his hand. Buddy sniffed the air but did not stand. He is scared, Claire said. And cold. Ethan opened the food bag and placed a small handful in front of him. No rush, Buddy. Claire unfolded the blanket. For several minutes, neither of them said much. The wind rattled the plywood over the window. Buddy finally moved forward and let Ethan touch his collar. Ethan smiled. Good boy. Claire helped wrap the blanket around him. When Ethan tried to lift him, Buddy stood on his own, slowly but steady enough to walk. That is better than I expected, Ethan said. Claire looked around the shed and noticed several empty bowls near the wall. A bag of dog food set inside a plastic container. You have been leaving supplies here. Ethan nodded. When I could. 4 weeks. About a month. Claire stared at the bowls. Daniel said you were using company fuel for personal trips. Ethan looked at her. I was. Claire was surprised by the answer. You are not going to defend yourself. I drove the company truck out here twice when mine was in the shop. I should have asked first. Why did you not? Ethan adjusted Buddy's blanket. Because I thought Daniel would say no. Claire almost smiled. He probably would have. Yeah. Ethan looked at the old dog. That did not make leaving them hungry feel any better. Claire was quiet. She had spent years running businesses where every expense had to be explained. Every mile. Every hour. Every dollar. She still believed that mattered. But standing in that old shed, she also understood something the red file had never shown her. Ethan was not trying to hide what he had done because he was proud of breaking rules. He just cared more about the dogs than he cared about looking innocent. Claire glanced at Buddy. Why did you start doing this? Ethan took a breath. Someone had to. That is not much of an explanation. It is the one I have. He stood and looked toward the door. We should get back before the road disappears. Claire nodded. This time, when Ethan carried the food bag and Buddy walked beside him, Claire carried the flashlight. Neither of them mentioned the investigation. But Claire knew one thing for sure. When they got back to the resort, she was going to read every page in that red file again. The walk back to the trucks took longer than Claire expected. Buddy moved slowly, and the snow kept getting deeper around their boots. Ethan stayed beside the old dog the whole way. He never pulled on the collar. He never rushed him. When Buddy stopped, Ethan stopped too. Claire noticed that. She was starting to notice a lot of things about Ethan Walker that no employee file could explain. By the time they reached the road, the 6 other dogs were still safe inside the truck, bundled under blankets. Ethan opened the passenger door and helped Buddy climb in. 7, Claire said. Ethan counted them again. 7. For the first time that evening, he looked relieved. Then the truck tires spun when he tried to move. Ethan tried again. Nothing. Snow had built up around the rear wheels, and the road behind them was almost gone. Claire checked her phone. Still no signal. Ethan looked toward her SUV. Mine is not going anywhere either. Claire let out a slow breath. So what now? Ethan pointed back toward the old storage shed. We get everyone out of the wind and wait for the plows. They carried the blankets, food, and water back to the shed. It took several trips. The dogs stayed close together once they were inside. Ethan sat near the door, listening to the wind while Claire poured water into 2 old bowls. You do this a lot, she asked. Get stranded in blizzards with my boss. Ethan said. Claire looked at him. Very funny. He smiled a little. No. This is new. The silence that followed felt easier than before. Claire sat across from him. Why do these dogs matter so much to you? Ethan looked down at Buddy. For a while, Claire thought he would give her the same answer again. Someone had to. Instead, he rubbed his hands together and said, My wife used to volunteer at a small rescue outside town. Claire stayed quiet. Rachel, she asked. Ethan looked surprised. You read my file. I did. He nodded. Yeah. Rachel. His voice changed when he said her name. Softer. She started taking Lucy there when Lucy was little. She said kids should grow up knowing that being kind is not something you save for people who can repay you. Claire looked at the dogs. What happened to the rescue? It is still there. Barely. And these dogs? They came from a place outside the county. The rescue was trying to take them in, but they ran out of space. Some got loose before anyone could move them. Claire understood now. So you started feeding them. Rachel would have. He said it simply. Not like a speech. Just a fact. Claire looked down at her expensive boots, wet and covered in road salt. How long has she been gone? 4 years. I am sorry. Ethan nodded. Thanks. Outside, the wind pressed against the walls. Inside, one of the smaller dogs rested its head against Ethan's boot. Claire watched him reach down without thinking and scratch behind its ear. Does Lucy know you come out here? She asked. She knows enough to worry. And she still lets you. Ethan smiled. Lucy does not let me do anything. She is 9. Claire laughed before she could stop herself. Ethan looked at her, surprised, and she shook her head. Do not get used to it. A few seconds passed. Then Claire said, I came out here because I thought you were stealing from me. Ethan looked at her calmly. I figured. You are not angry. Would it change anything? Claire had no answer. Ethan looked toward the 7 dogs sleeping under old resort blankets. People see what makes sense to them. Claire followed his gaze. For years, what made sense to her had been numbers, reports, and rules. Tonight, none of those things seemed big enough to explain the man sitting across from her. By morning, the worst of the storm had passed. A county plow reached the service road just after 8, followed by a small rescue truck from town. The 7 dogs were taken to the local shelter one by one, wrapped in clean blankets and checked by the rescue staff. Buddy was the last to leave Ethan's side. Before the volunteer closed the truck door, the old dog looked back at him and gave one slow wag of his tail. Claire saw it. So did Ethan. Neither of them said anything. 2 hours later, they were back at Bennett Ridge Resort. Ethan had barely changed out of his wet clothes when Daniel Cross called him into the conference room. Claire arrived a few minutes later and stayed near the door. The same red file was sitting on the table. Daniel opened it. Ethan, we need to talk about company property, fuel use, and time away from your assigned duties. Ethan pulled out a chair but did not sit. All right. Daniel looked at him. You used a company vehicle for trips that were not authorized. Twice. You removed food from the kitchen. With permission. Blankets from housekeeping. Also with permission. Daniel tapped the file. And you left the property during work hours more than once. Ethan nodded. I used my lunch break when I could. A couple times I stayed late to make up the rest. Daniel leaned back. That is not how company policy works. I know. Claire watched Ethan carefully. He was not defensive. He was not trying to make himself look good. Daniel continued. You understand this could lead to termination. Ethan looked down for a second. Claire thought about Lucy waiting at home. Rent. Groceries. School clothes. All the ordinary things a paycheck kept together. Ethan looked back up. Yeah. I understand. Daniel seemed almost annoyed by how calm he was. Do you have anything you want to say for yourself? Ethan thought about it. The kitchen food was going to be thrown away. Housekeeping was getting rid of the blankets. I should have asked before using the truck. That part is on me. Daniel closed the file. That is all. Before Ethan could answer, Claire stepped forward. No. Daniel turned. Claire. She walked to the table and placed something beside the red file. The red collar. Buddy's name tag clicked softly against the wood. Daniel looked at it. What is that? Claire kept her voice calm. It belongs to one of the 7 dogs Ethan spent last night getting out of the storm. The room went still. Daniel looked from the collar to Ethan. Claire continued. I followed him yesterday because I wanted the same answers you did. Daniel said nothing. I saw where the blankets went. I saw the food. I saw the fuel being used. She paused. And I saw him walk back into a blizzard because 7 collars came with only 6 dogs. Daniel's face changed. I did not know. Neither did I. Claire pulled out a chair and sat down. That is the problem. Ethan finally spoke. Claire, I still used the truck without asking. She looked at him. Yes, you did. Daniel seemed relieved for half a second. Then Claire added, so we will deal with that honestly. But we are not going to call kindness theft just because nobody bothered to ask where the supplies were going. Silence again. No one reached for the red file. Claire pushed it away. From now on, if we have food that can legally be donated, it gets donated. Usable blankets do not go into the trash. And we are setting up a mileage program for approved community support. Daniel blinked. You decided all that this morning. Claire looked at the red collar. I had a long night. Ethan stood there quietly. He had walked into the room thinking he might lose his job. Instead, for the first time, the people who had been studying his numbers were finally looking at the reason behind them. 3 weeks later, the snow around Bennett Ridge had started to melt. The roads were clear again, and the old storage shed looked smaller in daylight than Claire remembered. Ethan was there with Lucy when a white utility truck pulled up beside them. Lucy looked at the logo on the door, then at her dad. What is this? Ethan shook his head. No idea. Claire stepped out of the passenger side holding a folder. Behind the truck came another vehicle from the local rescue shelter. Martha Reed climbed out first. She was in her early 60s, bundled in a faded blue coat, and she walked straight to Ethan. You really did it this time, she said. Ethan looked confused. Did what? Martha smiled and pointed toward the old shed. Workers were unloading lumber, insulation, food bins, and new heating equipment. Lucy's eyes went wide. Claire handed Ethan the folder. Bennett Hospitality is funding the shelter for the next 3 years. Ethan stared at her. Claire. Let me finish. She pointed toward the building. This place is being renovated as a winter rescue station. Martha will run it. The resort will provide food donations, old linens, and approved transportation. Ethan looked from Claire to Martha. Why? Claire gave him a look. You know why. He opened the folder. The first page had the name of the new facility printed across the top. Rachel Walker Winter Rescue Center. Ethan stopped breathing for a second. Lucy leaned closer, read the name, and covered her mouth with both hands. That is Mom. Ethan looked at Claire. His voice was low. You named it after Rachel. Claire nodded. Martha told me what she did for the shelter. It felt right. Ethan looked away toward the building. He needed a moment. Claire did not fill the silence. She had learned that from him. Lucy hugged her father around the waist. Mom would love this. Ethan rested a hand on her shoulder. Yeah, he said. She would. A van from the shelter pulled in a few minutes later. When the back door opened, Buddy was the first dog out. The old golden retriever walked straight toward Ethan, then past him, right to Lucy. She dropped to her knees and wrapped her arms around him. Buddy. His tail started moving so hard that Martha laughed. Looks like he made his choice. Ethan smiled. I think Lucy made it first. Claire stood a few feet away, watching them. There was no ceremony. No giant check. No cameras. Just cold air, muddy snow, a little girl laughing, and 7 dogs that now had somewhere warm to go. Ethan walked over to Claire. You did not have to do all this. I know. Then why did you? Claire looked toward Lucy and Buddy. Because I spent a long time thinking money was only useful if it made something bigger. Ethan waited. Turns out sometimes it is better when it makes something safer. He nodded. Rachel would have liked you. Claire smiled. That sounds like a dangerous amount of pressure. She was hard to impress. So are you. Ethan laughed quietly. The moment was simple, and somehow that made it better. If this story made you think about someone who does good without asking for credit, take a second to like the video, subscribe, or leave a comment about them. People like that deserve to be remembered. Ethan looked back at the new sign one more time. For weeks, he had been accused of taking things that did not belong to him. In the end, the truth was almost the opposite. He had been giving away his time, his gas, his warmth, and pieces of a life he was still trying to hold together. Claire had followed him looking for proof that he was doing something wrong. What she found instead was character. The kind that shows up when there is no audience, no reward, and no reason to believe anyone will ever know.